If you're tired of being the one who cares more, explains more, and still walks away misunderstood, then you're in the right place. Because what you're about to understand is not about becoming emotionless. It's about becoming untouchable. You were taught that to be good, you must always be open, always available, always emotionally exposed. They told you that distance means cruelty, that detachment means you've lost your humanity. But this is one of the quiet lies people live by, because the world does not reward the man who feels everything. It consumes him. Every disappointment you remember, every betrayal that still echoes in your mind, came from giving access to people who never earned it. You confused emotional openness with strength, but strength is not emotional exposure. Strength is control. Machiavellian philosophy understood this long before modern psychology gave it new names. Power belongs to the one who feels deeply but reveals selectively, the one who observes without reacting, the one who cannot be easily moved, pressured, or manipulated. Emotional detachment is not the absence of feeling. It is the refusal to let feelings dictate your decisions. You do not become cold, you become precise. Most people react, they flare up, they explain themselves, they seek validation, and in doing so, they surrender their leverage. The moment someone can predict your emotional response, they can control you. Untouchable men are unpredictable, not because they are chaotic, but because they are disciplined. You are not learning to care less. You are learning to care wisely. If you understand this, comment below. I control my reactions, because from this moment forward, you stop asking, how do I feel? And start asking, what serves me? This is where emotional power begins. Number 1, the cost of emotional exposure. The moment you react without control, you reveal your position. Anger shows where you are vulnerable. Desperation shows what you fear losing. The need to be understood exposes how badly you want approval. And once these things are visible, they can be used against you. This is not cynicism, this is observation. People respond to emotional signals more than words, and most conflicts are not won by who is right, but by who remains composed when pressure rises. Emotional detachment begins when you realize that not every feeling deserves expression. You can feel disappointment without announcing it. You can feel anger without displaying it. You can feel hurt without surrendering your dignity. The disciplined man experiences emotion fully, but he chooses when, where, and to whom it is revealed. This is where most people fail, because they believe authenticity means immediate expression. It does not. True authenticity is alignment between your long-term goals and your behavior, not the uncontrolled release of temporary emotion. When you learn to pause between stimulus and response, you create space. And inside that space lies power. Others rush to defend themselves, to justify, to react. You observe, you listen, you let silence do the work that emotion would have ruined. Over time, people stop trying to provoke you because they cannot predict your reaction. They cannot pull you into emotional chaos. This is not coldness, it is sovereignty. You are no longer governed by the moods of others or the instability of the moment. You become difficult to manipulate because your decisions are no longer emotional negotiations. They are deliberate choices. And in a world driven by impulse, the man who cannot be emotionally rushed becomes the man who cannot be controlled. Number 2, detachment is not indifference. Most people misunderstand emotional detachment because they confuse it with indifference. They imagine a man who feels nothing, cares about nothing, and walks through life disconnected from everyone around him. That is weakness disguised as strength. True detachment is not the absence of care, it is the mastery of it. You still feel loyalty, ambition, love, and disappointment. But these emotions no longer own you. They inform you. They do not command you. The emotionally undisciplined man becomes a prisoner of his reactions. Praise makes him complacent. Criticism makes him defensive. Rejection makes him desperate. His emotional state is constantly negotiated by the opinions of others, but the detached man understands something different. Emotions are signals, not instructions. Anger tells you a boundary was crossed, not that you must explode. Fear tells you something matters, not that you must retreat. Sadness tells you something was lost, not that you must collapse. Once you understand this, you stop fighting your emotions and start governing them. Machiavellian thinking is often mistaken for cruelty, but at its core, it is about clarity, seeing people and situations as they are, not as you wish them to be. When you remove emotional illusion, you stop expecting fairness from an unfair world. You stop being shocked by selfishness, manipulation, or betrayal. And because you expect human nature, you are no longer emotionally destabilized by it. This is why emotionally detached individuals appear calm even in chaos. They are not surprised by conflict, they are prepared for it. They do not waste energy wishing reality were different. They adapt. There is also a quiet confidence that emerges from this state. When you no longer need constant validation, your presence changes. You speak less, but your words carry more weight. You listen more, and people reveal themselves without realizing it. Emotional restraint creates mystery, and mystery creates respect. Others begin to sense that you are not easily influenced, not easily pressured, not easily read, and this makes you dangerous in the most controlled sense of the word. Not dangerous because you seek conflict, but because you cannot be emotionally cornered. You choose your responses instead of inheriting them from the moment. Detachment, then, is not withdrawal from life. It is participation without surrender. You remain engaged, but never entangled. You care, but never at the cost of your clarity. And in that balance, you become something rare, a person who feels deeply, thinks clearly, and moves through the world untouched by emotional chaos. Number 3. The discipline of silence. Powerful men understand something most people never learn. Silence protects energy. The urge to explain yourself, to defend every decision, to correct every misunderstanding. This is emotional leakage. It drains focus and places your peace in the hands of others. The emotionally detached man does not rush to be understood. He understands himself, and that is enough. Silence is not weakness, it is restraint. When you speak less, you observe more. You begin to notice how often people reveal their intentions through impatience, insecurity, or the need to fill empty space. Most conversations are not exchanges of truth, they are attempts to gain emotional advantage. The one who reacts first usually loses. The one who stays composed controls the direction of the interaction. This is why emotional discipline feels uncomfortable at first. You will feel the urge to respond, to justify, to prove your point, but every time you resist that impulse, you strengthen control over yourself, and self-control is the foundation of all influence. Machiavellian thinking teaches that perception shapes reality. When others cannot easily read your emotions, they project their own assumptions onto you. They become cautious, measured, respectful, not because you demand it, but because your calm creates uncertainty. Emotional volatility invites challenge. Emotional stability discourages it. This does not mean you become distant or unapproachable. It means your emotions are no longer public property. You choose when to reveal warmth and when to remain neutral. Over time, this discipline creates an inner stillness. Situations that once provoked you begin to lose their power. Insults feel smaller. Drama feels irrelevant. You stop reacting to every spark because you no longer feel the need to win every moment. And ironically, this is when you begin to win more often, because your decisions are no longer made in heat, but in clarity. Number 4, the power of emotional restraint. Emotional restraint is often mistaken for suppression, but they are not the same. Suppression buries emotion until it explodes later. Restraint acknowledges emotion without surrendering to it. You feel the surge of anger, the sting of disrespect, the pull of disappointment, but you do not allow the moment to dictate your behavior. This is where real power begins, because most people live at the mercy of emotional momentum. One harsh word ruins their day. One rejection alters their confidence. One unexpected outcome sends them into reaction mode. The restrained man pauses. He lets the emotion pass through him like weather, knowing that no storm lasts forever unless he feeds it. This pause creates distance between impulse and action, and in that distance, clarity emerges. Machiavellian philosophy recognizes that control over others begins with control over oneself. If someone can provoke you easily, they own a piece of you. If they can predict your emotional reactions, they can guide your decisions without you realizing it. Emotional restraint removes that leverage. You become difficult to manipulate because your responses are chosen, not triggered. People sense this immediately. Attempts to provoke you lose their effectiveness. Arguments lose intensity because you refuse to escalate them. You stop participating in emotional games that once drained your energy. There is also a deeper transformation that occurs. When you stop reacting impulsively, you begin to see situations more clearly. You notice patterns in people's behavior. You recognize insecurity disguised as aggression, weakness hidden behind arrogance, and fear masked as control. Instead of taking everything personally, you begin to see emotional reactions as information. This shift alone frees enormous mental energy. You are no longer fighting every battle. You are deciding which ones matter. Masculine stoicism is not about hardness. It is about stability. A stable man becomes an anchor in chaotic environments. Others panic, rush, and overreact, while he remains steady. This steadiness creates trust and authority without effort. People naturally look toward the one who does not lose control when pressure rises. Emotional restraint turns presence into influence. You do not need to dominate conversations or force respect. Your composure earns it silently. Over time, restraint changes how you experience conflict itself. Situations that once felt threatening begin to feel neutral. You realize that most emotional confrontations are temporary storms created by ego and insecurity. By refusing to match that intensity, you remove yourself from unnecessary struggle. This is not avoidance, it is selection. You conserve energy for what truly matters: growth, purpose, and long-term positioning. The ultimate advantage of emotional restraint is freedom. When your emotional state is no longer dictated by external events or other people's behavior, you become internally independent. Praise does not inflate you. Criticism does not break you. Approval becomes optional rather than necessary. And in a world where most people are driven by emotional hunger, the one who is not desperate for validation becomes quietly powerful. He moves with intention, speaks with precision, and acts without needing emotional permission from anyone. Number 5. Seeing without illusion. Emotional attachment often blinds people to reality. They see what they want to see, not what is actually in front of them. They excuse disrespect because of history. They tolerate manipulation because of familiarity. They hold on to situations long after they have stopped serving them, simply because letting go feels uncomfortable. Emotional detachment removes this fog. It forces you to see people and circumstances as they truly are, not as you hoped they would be. This clarity can feel harsh at first, because illusion is comforting. But illusion is also expensive. It costs time, energy, and self-respect. Machiavellian thinking is rooted in observation without sentimentality, not cruelty, accuracy. When you stop expecting people to act against their own interests, you stop being surprised by their choices. You understand that most behavior is driven by self-preservation, fear, or desire. And once you understand this, you stop taking everything personally. Someone's betrayal becomes information. Someone's disrespect becomes a signal. Someone's loyalty becomes something to value carefully rather than assume blindly. Emotional detachment allows you to respond strategically instead of emotionally. There is a quiet strength in no longer needing reality to be different. Many people suffer not because of what happens, but because of their resistance to what is. They argue with outcomes, replay conversations, and search for fairness in situations where fairness was never guaranteed. The detached man accepts reality quickly. Acceptance does not mean approval, it means clarity, and clarity allows movement. While others remain stuck in emotional resistance, you adapt, reposition, and move forward. This perspective changes relationships as well. You stop chasing validation and start observing consistency. Words matter less than patterns. Promises matter less than behavior repeated over time. You become slower to trust, but deeper in loyalty once trust is earned. Because your attachment is no longer based on emotion alone, it becomes stable rather than fragile. In this state, you no longer fear loss in the same way. You understand that everything in life is temporary. Positions, relationships, approval, even identity itself. Instead of clinging, you engage fully while remaining prepared to let go when necessary. And paradoxically, this makes you more present, not less. You appreciate without depending. You care without losing yourself. You move through life with open eyes, grounded in reality, untouched by illusion. Number 6. The strength of emotional independence. The moment you stop needing others to regulate your emotions, your entire posture in life changes. Emotional dependence is subtle. It hides behind the need for reassurance, the desire to be understood, the expectation that others should behave in ways that keep you comfortable. But comfort is unstable when it depends on people you cannot control. Emotional independence begins when you accept that no one is responsible for maintaining your inner balance except you. This realization is not lonely, it is liberating. You stop waiting for apologies to move on. You stop needing recognition to continue improving. Your progress no longer pauses because someone failed to meet your expectations. Most people negotiate their emotional state constantly. Their mood rises with praise and falls with criticism. Their confidence depends on acceptance. Their peace depends on agreement. This makes them easy to influence because their stability exists outside of themselves. The emotionally independent man operates differently. Approval is pleasant but unnecessary. Disapproval is noted but not internalized. He listens, evaluates, and decides what deserves his attention. Everything else passes through without leaving a mark. This is where masculine stoicism becomes practical rather than philosophical. Stability creates reliability. Reliability creates trust. When others know you will not collapse under pressure or react impulsively to discomfort, your presence becomes grounding. People begin to measure their own reactions against your calm, not because you impose authority, but because emotional consistency naturally commands respect. You become someone who cannot be easily shaken, and in uncertain environments, that quality becomes rare and valuable. Emotional independence also changes how you pursue goals. You no longer chase outcomes to prove your worth. You pursue them because they align with your direction. Failure becomes feedback instead of identity. Rejection becomes redirection instead of humiliation. The emotional charge around success and failure weakens, allowing you to act with greater precision. You take calculated risks because your sense of self is not destroyed by temporary loss. Over time, this independence creates a quiet confidence that does not need display. You speak without urgency. You move without seeking permission. You are patient because you are not emotionally starving for immediate results. And patience, combined with clarity, becomes a form of power most people underestimate. When you are no longer driven by emotional need, your decisions become cleaner, your focus sharper, and your path harder for others to disrupt. Number 7. Detachment in conflict. Conflict reveals who truly controls themselves. Most people enter confrontation already defeated because their emotions take control before their mind does. Voices rise, egos clash, and the original issue disappears beneath reaction and pride. Emotional detachment changes this entirely. You stop seeing conflict as a personal attack and start seeing it as a situation to be navigated. The goal is no longer to win emotionally, but to remain effective. When you are detached, insults lose their power because they fail to provoke a response. Provocation requires participation, and you simply refuse to provide it. This does not mean you avoid confrontation. It means you approach it without emotional urgency. You listen longer. You speak less. And when you respond, your words are deliberate rather than impulsive. This alone shifts the balance. The emotionally reactive person reveals their intentions quickly while you remain composed, gathering information. In many cases, the conflict resolves itself because the other person cannot sustain emotional intensity without resistance. Calmness disarms aggression more effectively than force. Detachment also prevents unnecessary escalation. Not every disagreement deserves your energy. Not every challenge deserves your attention. The disciplined man understands that walking away is sometimes the strongest position available. He does not fight to protect ego. He engages only when purpose requires it. This selectiveness preserves strength for moments that truly matter. Over time, people learn that emotional pressure does not work on you. Attempts to guilt, provoke, or intimidate lose effectiveness. You become difficult to corner because your reactions cannot be predicted or forced. And in conflict, unpredictability combined with calm creates advantage. You remain steady while others exhaust themselves emotionally. When the noise fades, you are still clear, still controlled, and still in position to choose your next move wisely. Number 8. Becoming untouchable. There comes a point where emotional detachment stops feeling like effort and starts feeling like identity. At first, you practice restraint consciously. You remind yourself not to react, not to chase, not to explain. But over time, something changes. You begin to see how much of human behavior is driven by emotional impulse, and once you see it clearly, you cannot unsee it. Arguments fueled by ego, decisions made out of fear, attachments formed out of loneliness rather than alignment. You stop being pulled into these patterns because you recognize their cost. This is where untouchability begins, not in isolation but in self-possession. Being untouchable does not mean people cannot reach you. It means they cannot control you through emotion. Praise does not make you dependent. Criticism does not make you defensive. Silence from others does not make you anxious. You remain centered because your sense of direction comes from within, not from reaction. Most people search for emotional certainty in others, and this makes them unstable. The moment approval disappears, so does their confidence. But when your stability is internal, external changes lose their power over you. Machiavellian philosophy teaches that perception shapes influence, and emotional control reshapes how others perceive you. When you do not react impulsively, people hesitate before challenging you. When you do not overshare, people reveal more than they intend. When you remain calm under pressure, others assume depth and capability. This is not manipulation, it is consequence. Composure signals strength because it is rare. In a world addicted to reaction, restraint feels almost intimidating. There is also a quiet freedom that comes with this state. You stop trying to manage how others see you. You stop correcting every misunderstanding. You understand that being fully understood is neither possible nor necessary. This removes an enormous psychological burden. Energy, once spent on explanation, is redirected toward growth, strategy, and purpose. You move with intention rather than emotional urgency. Untouchability also changes how you experience loss. You no longer cling desperately to people or outcomes, because you understand that attachment without control leads to suffering. Instead, you invest where there is mutual respect and withdraw where there is chaos. Letting go becomes easier because your identity is no longer tied to external roles or relationships. You can walk away without collapsing, and this alone gives you leverage in every area of life. The one who is prepared to leave is never easily trapped. But there is an important distinction here. Emotional detachment is not about building walls. It is about building boundaries. Walls isolate, boundaries protect. You remain capable of loyalty, connection, and even deep emotion. But these are now choices rather than necessities. You give attention where it is earned, not where it is demanded. You care without losing clarity. Eventually, people sense this shift. They may not understand it, but they feel it. You are harder to provoke, harder to read, harder to pressure. Conversations become more respectful. Conflicts become shorter. Your presence carries weight because it is not driven by emotional noise. And in this state, you discover something unexpected: peace. Not the fragile peace that depends on everything going your way, but the stable peace that comes from knowing that no external chaos can force you to abandon yourself. This is the final advantage of emotional detachment. You remain fully engaged in life, yet untouched by its attempts to pull you into emotional disorder. Number 9. The calm beyond control. At the highest level, emotional detachment is no longer something you practice. It becomes the way you exist. You stop measuring your life by emotional highs and lows and begin to value consistency instead. The world around you continues to move with chaos. People rush, react, panic, celebrate too early, despair too quickly, but internally, something settles. You are no longer pulled in every direction by circumstance. You become steady, and that steadiness changes how you move through everything. Most people spend their lives trying to control outcomes. They try to control how others see them, how situations unfold, how quickly success arrives, and how pain should disappear. Because none of these things can ever be fully controlled, they live in constant tension. Emotional detachment ends this struggle. You stop trying to control what was never yours to control and focus instead on what always was: your perception, your response, and your direction. This shift removes unnecessary suffering. You stop arguing with reality and begin working with it. There is maturity in realizing that not every battle deserves your energy. Not every opinion requires an answer. Not every loss demands retaliation. The emotionally reactive mind treats everything as personal, but the disciplined mind understands timing. It knows when to act and when to remain still. Strategy replaces impulse. Patience replaces urgency. And over time, patience quietly defeats chaos. Masculine stoicism is not emotional numbness, it is emotional endurance. You still feel disappointment, anger, and desire, but they no longer dictate your behavior. Emotion becomes information rather than command. You remain human, but difficult to destabilize. This balance allows you to move through uncertainty without fear, because you no longer depend on perfect conditions to remain composed. As this mindset deepens, approval loses its grip on you. You stop shaping your behavior to be liked and start shaping it to remain aligned with your principles. Respect becomes more valuable than acceptance, and self-respect becomes non-negotiable. Your life grows quieter, not because challenges disappear, but because fewer things disturb your inner state. Drama loses its appeal, reaction loses its purpose. In the end, emotional detachment gives you something most people spend their lives searching for: peace that does not depend on circumstances. You remain engaged with life, capable of loyalty, ambition, and deep feeling, but untouched by emotional chaos. You do not withdraw from the world. You simply refuse to be ruled by it. And if this message resonated with you, take a moment to like the video, subscribe to Machiavellian State, and turn on notifications so you don't miss the next lesson. And before you leave, comment below: I remain calm, I remain in control.